The sun was setting in muted orange over Greenridge, a mostly white upper-middle-class neighborhood where people mowed lawns in polos and waved without really meaning it. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday evening. The black BMW slowed to a halt at the side of Willow Creek Boulevard. Its taillights flickered red, illuminating the police cruiser pulling in behind it. The siren had barely finished its dying whoop when the officer stepped out, sunglasses still on, even though the sun was nearly gone. Officer Darren Cooper, mid-40s, barrel-chested, ex-military, known in the force as strict but fair, known on the street as something else entirely. He strutted up to the driver's side, one hand on his belt, the other twitching near his taser. His partner, a rookie barely out of academy, stayed seated, tense. Behind the wheel was a black man in his late 20s, crisp button-down shirt, clean fade, calm posture. No sudden movements, license and registration, Cooper barked before the window was even halfway down. The man nodded silently, retrieving the documents with slow, deliberate care. Cooper snatched them. "You know why I pulled you over?" "No." "Yes, sir. You were going 37 in a 35, and you changed lanes without signaling." The man's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Is that so?" "That's exactly so," Cooper snapped. A few pedestrians had stopped. A woman walking her dog, two teenagers on bikes. One of them had his phone out, already filming, Cooper noticed. His voice got louder. "Step out of the vehicle." The man hesitated. "I haven't done anything wrong." That wasn't a request. He stepped out, tall, quiet confidence. There was something unsettling about how unbothered he seemed, like he knew something Cooper didn't. Hands on the hood. The man complied. Cooper patted him down, rougher than necessary. Slammed the car door shut with his hip. "You people think you can come into our neighborhoods, drive fancy cars, act like you belong?" The man turned his head slightly. "You might want to choose your next words carefully." Cooper didn't. He slapped him open palm, hard, a sharp crack that seemed to pause the air. The man didn't flinch. He stood still, breathing slow and steady, like a fuse had just been lit inside him, but not yet burned out. The crowd gasped. The teenager's camera caught everything, even Cooper's smug smirk. But then the man spoke. Just one sentence. Cold. Level. No emotion. "You're going to regret that," Cooper scoffed. "What, you gonna cry to the news?" The man didn't respond, just stood there. Still. Silent, watching. A quiet siren approached from the other side of the street. Another cruiser. This one was different. It parked fast. Door opened. A tall black woman in a tailored police uniform stepped out. Lieutenant's badge shining, braids tied neatly, eyes sharp. "Officer Cooper," she called. Cooper turned, confused. "Ma'am?" Her eyes flicked to the man, then back to Cooper. "Step away from the civilians." "Ma'am, he was resisting. I said step away." The silence that followed was louder than the slap. Cooper's face paled. The woman walked to the man calmly, her voice soft. "Are you all right?" "Sir." He nodded once, still no emotion. "Yes, Lieutenant, I'm fine." And that's when Cooper realized this wasn't just some black guy in a BMW. This was someone important. The lieutenant turned back to Cooper. "You're under review for excessive force, racial profiling, and assault." But you laid hands on a man without cause. And that man is part of an internal affairs investigation. Congratulations, officer. You just assaulted a federal witness. Cooper's mouth fell open. The teenager's phone caught everything, and as the cuffs came out, the right kind this time, the black man finally allowed himself a faint smile. Only the beginning. The video was 29 seconds long. It began with a slap and ended with a pair of handcuffs, and within 2 hours of the teenager uploading it to TikTok, it had 3 million views. By dawn, it was everywhere. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube. News anchors whispered words like abuse, racism, Unprovoked. The headline on CNN read, "Police officer slaps unarmed black man, gets arrested by black lieutenant on scene." But the clip wasn't just viral, it was radioactive. The man in the video hadn't released a statement. He hadn't tweeted, posted, or spoken to the media. No name, no identity. Just calm eyes and a stinging silence, and somehow that made everything louder. In the police department break room, Officer Darren Cooper sat with his hands clenched, his badge already confiscated. "You've seen it?" he asked the captain. The captain didn't answer. "She ambushed me. That was a setup." "You slapped him, Darren, unprovoked." "I didn't know who he was." "That's the problem." The internal affairs notice was taped on the door. Cooper stared at it, chest tight, sweat breaking above his lip. How was I supposed to know he was connected to the department? "Why? Should that matter?" the captain replied, voice low. "If he wasn't connected, would it still have been okay?" Cooper didn't respond. Elsewhere, in a high-rise building 3 cities away, the man from the video stood at a tall window, phone in hand, watching the chaos unfold. His name was Daniel Royce, senior analyst, DOJ Internal Civil Rights Division. The slap wasn't just an insult, it was evidence. And now, with the world watching, Daniel was no longer invisible. Behind him, his phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered. Calm. "You've made quite the entrance," said the voice. "Didn't plan it." "Maybe not, but the public sees you now." Daniel paused. "They see a man who got slapped, that's all." "No," the voice said. "They see a man who didn't flinch." In Greenridge, the atmosphere had shifted. Protesters gathered at the police station, holding signs with phrases like, "Protect us, don't slap us," "Justice shouldn't wear a badge," "Who polices the police?" Cooper's neighbors stopped looking him in the eye. His mailbox had been spray-painted. His daughter was pulled out of school. He watched the chaos from his couch, blinds drawn, beer in hand. His wife hadn't spoken to him in days. On the TV, the lieutenant who cuffed him, Lieutenant Cassandra Bell, was giving a press statement. "No officer is above the law. Not on my watch." Cooper threw the remote across the room. Daniel stood in front of the mirror in his apartment, suit jacket pressed, eyes unblinking. The silence had been shattered. Now comes the reckoning. He buttoned his collar, slid on a tie, and picked up a folder marked Greenridge PD, Use of Force Review, Confidential. He whispered to himself as he turned off the light. Time to return the favor. The press found his name before sunrise. Daniel Royce, age 29, federal civil rights investigator, assigned to monitor high-risk precincts for use of force abuse patterns, and now the man slapped in a viral video. By 9 a.m., the media had descended. On the DOJ offices in Washington, "Mr. Royce, will you press charges? Did you feel targeted because of your race? Were you undercover at the time?" Daniel ignored them all. He never looked for the spotlight, but the spotlight had found him, Rasulility. Cassandra Bell sat in her office, blinds half drawn, a stack of papers in front of her, complaints, statements, video transcripts. Cooper's file was thicker than it should have been. Too many complaints dismissed, too many inconclusive results. But now she had a trigger. She dialed her contact at Internal Affairs. "We're moving forward. I want charges filed within 48 hours. Pushbacks." "Already started," came the voice. "Half the precinct circling the wagons for Cooper says it's a witch hunt." "I don't care if they call it a crusade," Bell said. "If this dies in silence, we all rot with it." She hung up. Daniel walked through the Greenridge. Precinct doors just before noon. Calm, no entourage, just a leather folder and a quiet storm in his eyes. The lobby fell silent. Some recognized him instantly. Others whispered, "That's the guy from the video. He's IA? He's here? Let's do." Bell came out to meet him personally. They shook hands, firm, deliberate. "You good?" she asked. "I've never been clearer." They walked through the halls side by side. Cooper, seated in the holding area, saw Daniel pass. For a moment, their eyes locked. Daniel didn't stop walking. didn't blink, didn't smile. A meeting was called in the main conference room. Half the precinct showed up, the rest pretended they were on duty. Lieutenant Bell stood in front. Daniel remained seated near the back, silent, eyes scanning faces. "This isn't about Cooper," Bell said. "It's about a system that protected him. We don't get to cherry-pick accountability. If one of us falls, we all get weighed down." A sergeant raised his hand. White, thick mustache, respected. "With all due respect, ma'am, are we supposed to just let outsiders dictate how we police?" Daniel's voice finally broke the air. "I was never outside your system. I was inside. It hidden in plain sight, until one of your own made the mistake of treating me like he treats every other black man." The room went quiet. Daniel stood. "I'm not here to get even. I'm here to expose the pattern. Because what he did on camera, that was normal for him, and you all knew it. Some looked away, some stared back. None spoke." Back in the squad room, Officer Cooper sat alone. His locker was empty. His badge number had been deactivated. But what stung most wasn't the charges, or the cameras, or even Daniel. It was Belle. He'd trained her. Back when she was just a rookie. Now she was holding the sword over his head. He stared at his reflection in a vending machine glass, muttering under his breath, "You should have known your place." That evening, Daniel submitted his initial report to the DOJ. The subject line was simple: Systemic Enablers, Phase 1 complete. Under it, a quote from Baldwin, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." The sun barely rose before the threats began. Emails, voicemails, DMs, some anonymous, some loud and proud. Race-baiting punk. "Go back to DC, you fed me a piece of shit." We stand with Officer Cooper, not with some liberal clown. Chasing likes, Daniel scrolled through them over black coffee. No reaction, just a steady hand and a scribbled note in his legal pad. Pushback, confirmation. Greenridge was splitting at the seams. On one side, protesters waving handmade signs, chanting under fading streetlights. On the other, pickup trucks with thin blue-line flags and men with folded arms. Between them, riot police, and tense and sweating. Bell stood near the barrier line, jaw clenched, eyes scanning. A voice barked from behind. "Lieutenant!" She turned. A captain from the Central Division. Older, white, smiling without warmth. "You need to get this under control." Media's crawling all over, city councils demanding updates. Bell didn't blink. "Tell them to read the report." He leaned closer, voice low. "You're making enemies," she smiled. "Only the right ones." That night, the Greenridge City Council held an emergency meeting, public, broadcast live. Chairs were filled with angry faces. Some clapped, some glared. All waited. Daniel entered quietly, took a seat in the third row. The mayor called the session to order. A councilwoman, red lipstick sharp like a blade, pointed her words at Bell. "Lieutenant, are you admitting your department has a racism problem?" "No," Bell said calmly. "I'm saying it has a silence problem. Racism thrives in silence." Murmurs swept the chamber. The councilman next to her scoffed. "So we're letting a DOJ outsider lead a witch hunt now?" Daniel stood slowly. "If exposing the truth is a witch hunt, then yes, I brought the torches." Gasps, phones lifted, flashbulbs blinked. He continued, "I didn't ask for that slap, but I won't let it be wasted. I'm not the story. The system is." Silence. Then a single clap. Then two. Then the room broke. Cheers and jeers crashing like waves. Somewhere in a dim bar across town, Cooper watched the meeting from a cracked TV screen, beer bottle in hand. His old partner sat next to him, stone-faced. "They're turning this place into a circus," Cooper muttered. His partner didn't respond. Cooper stared at Daniel's face on screen. "You watch. All this will blow over." But deep down, in the place pride won't touch, he wasn't so sure. Outside City Hall, Bell caught up to Daniel. You stirred the fire. I just gave it oxygen. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next? Daniel looked up at the night sky. I was born ready. I just didn't know what to do. Daniel sat in interview room B, a grey, soundproof chamber with a one-way mirror, 2 chairs, and a folder thick with suppressed stories. One by one, they came in. Officers. Some retired. Some are active, all with memories. The first was Officer Rena Hart. She fidgeted with the ring on her finger as Daniel spoke. Did you ever witness Officer Cooper using excessive force? She hesitated. Yes. How many times? Her eyes didn't lift. Enough to lose count, Daniel paused. And you never filed a report? I tried. Once. Got pulled off patrol for a week, told I was overreacting. After that, I stopped trying. Next came Sergeant Wells, mid-50s, tight jaw, years of regret behind his eyes. Cooper's problem wasn't just racism, he said. It was power. He hated being challenged, especially by black men. The more confident they were, the more he hated it. Why didn't anyone stop him? Wells looked through the mirror. Because the system didn't want him stopped. Daniel leaned in. Or because it rewarded him. Wells didn't answer. He didn't need to. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Bell was reviewing locker room camera archives, something few ever did. She spotted something strange. In one clip from 6 months ago, Cooper is seen pinning a young black man to a locker, shouting something. The audio is missing, but his posture is clear. Rage, unchecked and vicious. No one intervenes, no one reports. She plays it again, then saves it to her encrypted drive. Daniel continued his interviews. One officer, visibly shaken, whispered, "Every time I rode with him, I prayed the suspect would be white, just so we'd all get home without incident." Another, "We joked that if you were black and driving a nice car, you had a Cooper-shaped target on your back." Another, "He made it clear. I don't care who you are. If you look like trouble, I treat you like it." But trouble always looked the same. At the end of the day, Daniel returned to his hotel, poured a glass of water, and laid out everything on his wall. Names, statements, timeline, patterns, a map of silence stitched together by fear and complicity. He wrote one word in red across the top, taught, because Cooper wasn't just acting on impulse, he'd been taught, trained, empowered. And now, Daniel was unlearning the entire culture by ripping it out root by root. Bell called just before midnight. "I found something. Video footage, locker room. It's bad, worse than the slap. It shows a pattern, precedent. We can prove this wasn't an isolated incident." Daniel took a breath. "Then we're almost there." Bell's voice was steady. "You do know what happens when we finish this, right?" "We don't get applause," Daniel said. "We will go to war." The studio was ice cold. Bright lights cut through the darkness like interrogation beams. Daniel sat across from the anchor, Maria Elston, known for her sharp questions and sharper delivery. She shuffled a stack of cue cards but didn't need them. The cameras were live in 3, 2. "We're joined tonight by Daniel Royce," Maria began, "the federal investigator at the center of a now viral police abuse case that has shaken the Greenridge Police Department to its core." Daniel offered a slight nod. Maria leaned in. "You were silent for days after the incident. Why speak now?" Daniel's voice was even, calm, the kind that carried weight because it didn't need volume. "I wanted people to see more than the slap. What should we see? A pattern, a culture, a system that rewards aggression and punishes conscience." She paused. "You weren't just a civilian that night. You were an undercover federal investigator. Why keep that secret?" "Because I needed to see who they were when no one was watching. That slap, that wasn't a mistake. That was muscle memory." The room held its breath. Back in Greenridge, Lieutenant Bell sat at her desk watching the interview unfold on her laptop. Her phone buzzed non-stop, Texts from reporters, defense attorneys, and higher-ups. A group chat of captains and brass lit up with anger. He's turning this into a circus. We need to regain control of the narrative. He just torched our entire reputation. Belle smiled bitterly. No, gentlemen, she whispered. You did that yourselves. Maria continued the interview. You've been called everything. From a hero to a race hustler. How do you respond to the backlash? Daniel didn't flinch. I don't need people to believe in me. I need them to believe what they saw. Do you think Officer Cooper represents most police? No, Daniel replied, but I think he represents what happens when the good ones stay quiet. The silence that followed was louder than applause. Maria leaned back, visibly moved. What happens next? I finish what I started. Within an hour of airing, the interview trended globally. Daniel Royce. Silence is complicity. Josh Cooper must go national. Leaders weighed in. Civil rights groups mobilized. Donations poured in for independent investigations. And in the precinct, the air grew thick with unease. Cooper sat alone in a small apartment he now rented, after being asked to take some time away from his family. He watched the screen, then picked up his phone, dialed a number from memory. It rang 3 times, a voice answered, familiar and worn. You said this would go away. Yeah, the voice said. You said you'd keep your hands to yourself. Bell received an encrypted file from an anonymous source late that night. It was a transcript from the captain's group chat. Lines that chilled her. He's going to destroy us all. We should have buried the tape. Too late now. Let's take the fall. She copied them into a new folder, titled it Evidence of Institutional Knowledge. She knew what was coming next. This wasn't just about Cooper anymore. It was about all the hands that held him up. 2 days after the interview, the servers at Greenridge PD went down. Routine maintenance, the official statement claimed. But Bell wasn't fooled. She'd seen this playbook before. Delay, delete, deny. By the time IT restored access, 3 key complaint files against Officer Cooper had mysteriously disappeared. Files with timestamps, victim statements, and internal notes gone. Scrubbed clean, but not from her external backups. She'd printed everything the night before the interview aired, and she wasn't the only one keeping receipts. Daniel was back in Washington, briefing senior DOJ officials. Via secure video. We have evidence of deliberate suppression of misconduct records, he said. A deputy director leaned forward. You're sure? Confirmed. Cross-referenced backups, interview discrepancies, and leaked group chat transcripts. They've been hiding this for years. Another official asked, Are we talking about rogue officers or full systemic failure? Daniel answered without pause. System. Failure. Cooper was a symptom. The disease is in the bones. Meanwhile, a junior officer in Greenridge, young, white, fresh-faced, walked into Lieutenant Bell's office, eyes wide, voice low. I saw them pulling files last night, he said. Captain Marsh and 2 others. They used a back entrance. Do you have proof? He swallowed. Security footage, and if it hasn't been wiped yet. Bell stood slowly. Walk with me. They headed to the archive hallway. Empty lights. Dimmed. Security room locked. Bell knocked once. No answer. She pulled out her badge and called through the door. Officer Bell, you have 60 seconds to open this door before I call internal investigations. Silence. Then the lock clicked. The night tech inside looked pale. Bell's tone was calm but razor sharp. Pull all footage from the last 72 hours, all entry logs, all drive accesses. He nodded fast. She turned to the junior officer. You just crossed a line. I know. It's the right line. Later that evening, Daniel received an email with a subject line that froze him. Complaint No. 457B. Recovered footage attached. He opened it. A grainy video, time-stamped from 14 months earlier. A parking lot behind the precinct. Cooper slamming a black teenager against a squad car. No report, no paperwork, no accountability, and in the background, Captain Marsh watching, arms folded, saying nothing. Daniel forwarded the video to Bell. No words, just a link and the subject, your turn. Belle walked into the precinct the next morning with the kind of calm that only comes before a storm. She went straight to the captain's office, closed the door, placed the printed transcript, recovered footage, and internal chat logs on his desk. Marsh, who flipped through the first few pages, then looked up. "Are you planning to leak this?" "No," she said, staring him down. "I'm filing it." "With who?" She leaned in. "With everyone." That night, national headlines shifted again. Greenridge PD accused of suppressing misconduct. Evidence points to command involvement. Slap was just the start. DOJ now targeting entire department. Daniel stood by his apartment window, watching distant sirens cut through the skyline. He whispered to himself, "They tried to bury it." Then his eyes narrowed. "But we're the roots." A black SUV pulled up to the Greenridge precinct at 6:45 a.m. The woman who stepped out wasn't here to make friends. DOJ senior investigator Layla Chen, sharp suit, zero expression, walked in with a team of 3, briefcases in hand, authority. Radiating from her silence, Belle met her at the entrance. "They're expecting us," Chen said. "Not happily," Belle replied. "That's never the goal." Conference room 3 became the temporary internal affairs office. Every officer was pulled in, one by one, names logged, voices recorded. It wasn't just about Cooper anymore. It was about everyone who let him operate like a wrecking ball in uniform. Daniel watched it unfold from DC, tuned into secure feeds, reading live interview transcripts. The testimonies came in like dominoes. Some cracked instantly. "I was just following orders. I didn't want to lose my pension. He said if I spoke up, I'd be on parking duty till I died." Others pushed back. "This is a hit job. Cooper didn't do anything we wouldn't do. You people don't understand real policing." And some were different. It was Officer James Connolly's interview that changed everything. 12-year vet, Irish, quiet, loyal to Cooper for years. He sat in the room, arms crossed, then suddenly he broke. "I covered for him." The agent leaned forward. "On what?" "A use-of-force incident. 18 months ago, a traffic stop. He slammed a man's face into the pavement. No report. I logged it as verbal warning." "Why?" Connolly swallowed hard. "He said if I didn't, I'd be next." "Next?" "Next. In line for his rage or his accusations, or worse, his friends turning cold. You don't survive in Greenridge unless you play along." Daniel read the transcript with still hands. He called Lieutenant Bell. Connolly flipped. Bell's voice was tired but steady. "I knew someone would. That was the last wall." "What are they doing now?" "Panicking." Meanwhile, Captain Marsh sat alone in his office, staring at an empty wall. He'd been notified of his administrative leave that morning. His phone had gone dark. No backing, no denials, just silence. He lit a cigarette he hadn't touched in years and muttered all this over a slap. But deep down, even he knew it wasn't about the slap. It was about the years they let it slide. That evening, Bell and Chen met in private. Bell placed a folder on the table. Final report. Chen flipped through the pages. Abuse records. Whistleblower. Statements, lost footage, misfiled complaints, testimonies of threats. "This," she said, "is more than enough." For Cooper. For a department purge. Chen closed the folder. Final recommendation, external oversight. Leadership. Restructure, federal supervision. Bell nodded, and Cooper, Chen didn't smile. His turn is next. Daniel sat at his desk, watching the investigation summary come through. He didn't lean back. He didn't celebrate. He just stared at the words. Culture enabled, silence protected, accountability incoming. The moment finally arrives. Officer. Cooper is arrested. This time not in the heat of a confrontation, but under the cold, steady gaze of justice. The department watches in silence. Daniel and Bell don't gloat. They don't need to. The system, for once, speaks. It happened without a siren, no crowd, no warning. No media circus, just two unmarked sedans pulling up to a beige house on the edge of town. 42 a.m. A knock. Firm. Measured. Inside, Darren Cooper opened the door wearing yesterday's shirt, the collar wrinkled, breath sharp with last night's. Whiskey? He wasn't surprised. He just stared at the man holding the warrant, a federal marshal with no expression. Darren Cole Cooper, the man said. You're under arrest for aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, falsifying reports, and civil rights violations under Title 18. The cuffs clicked. No shouting, no resistance. Cooper looked around as if expecting someone to stop it. No one did. At the precinct, the arrest hit like a quiet bomb. Some officers froze, some whispered, a few looked down, ashamed, and a very small number, just a handful, nodded. Guilty. Belle didn't make a speech. She just entered her office, shut the door, and sat in silence for 1 full minute. Then she picked up her phone. Daniel's call came through as Belle was staring out her window. "It's done," he said. "I know. You okay?" "Not sure yet," she paused. "This doesn't fix what was broken." "No," Daniel agreed, "but it stops the bleeding." Cooper sat in a holding cell with white walls and a metal bench, the same kind of place he used to send others. Without paperwork, without pause. Now he sat in the quiet, the same quiet he used to call power. Now it was something else. Lonely, final cold. His lawyer would come, so would the press, but he knew it didn't matter. The camera didn't lie, the tape didn't vanish. The people he thought were shields, they were all stepping back. And Daniel Royce, he wasn't just a man, he was a reckoning. Later that evening, news broke across every major outlet. Officer Darren Cooper arrested, federal charges filed in Greenridge civil rights case. From badge to bars, viral slap officer in custody. DOJ confirms investigation expanded to department-wide culture. On every broadcast, the same mugshot appeared. Dull eyes, no fight, no pride, just a man staring at the end of a version of himself. That night, Belle met Daniel on the roof of a nearby parking structure. No lights, just city hum and cold wind. "Is this what justice feels like?" she asked. Daniel looked over the ledge. "No, but it's the start of it." In another part of town, a group of young black teenagers walked past a wall where someone had painted, "He thought he could slap us into silence." He was wrong. One of them stopped, took a picture, smiled. With Cooper behind bars, the ripple effect begins. Officers resign. The town faces itself in the mirror. Daniel is asked to speak at a community forum, and what he says becomes a defining moment, not just for Greenridge, but for the country watching. The echo wasn't in the slap. It was in what came after, in the courtroom gasps, in the shuffled resignations. In the way neighbors stopped pretending not to see. Greenridge couldn't go back. Too many eyes were watching, too many hearts had shifted. And for the first time in decades, the police precinct had more empty desks than filled ones. 3 officers turned in their badges quietly. 2 more took extended leave. 1 issued an apology in writing, anonymous but raw. "I should have spoken. I'm sorry I didn't." No one celebrated. There was no parade, but something had cracked open, and the air smelled different. At a local high school, a teacher replayed Daniel's interview in class. One student, a tall, soft-spoken kid in the back, raised his hand. "Miss, is he gonna run for something?" The class chuckled, but the teacher just smiled and said, "He already did." Meanwhile, Daniel received a formal invitation. Community Healing Forum, Greenridge Civic Center. The email read, "Your voice opened the wound. Maybe it can help us stitch it closed." Daniel stared at it for a long time, then typed 1 word. Yes. The night of the forum, the gymnasium buzzed with unease. Every seat taken, folding chairs in the back, cameras discreetly tucked behind poles. Daniel stepped onto the stage without a script. Lateeb Bell sat in the front row, arms crossed but eyes soft. Daniel scanned the crowd, faces of all shades, some hopeful, some angry, some unsure. He began. "I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted to be heard." He paused. The slap hurt, not just physically, but because it wasn't surprising. That's the problem. Silence. Too many of us grow up expecting that kind of treatment, and worse, expecting no one to care. He let the silence breathe. "I didn't come here to burn Greenridge down. I came to show it to itself." A murmur of nods, a few claps. "I saw good people stay silent. I saw scared people follow bad orders. And I saw one man finally face the system he thought would always protect him. But let me be clear, this doesn't end with Cooper." He looked directly into the lens of one camera. "If you're wearing a badge and staying silent, this is your warning." Pause. "And if you're wearing your skin like it's a target, you're not alone anymore." He stepped back. The room didn't erupt. It stood, every single person quietly, firmly, a standing ovation not of joy, but of recognition. Afterward, an elderly black woman walked up to Daniel, cane in hand, eyes glistening. She whispered, "I saw too much in my time. Thank you for making them see." He simply nodded. No speech left, no spotlight needed, just weight shared. Outside, a banner flapped in the wind tied to the fence by two students. "Justice isn't loud. It's steady." Daniel read it, smiled faintly, and kept walking. As policy changes take root, the atmosphere in Greenridge slowly begins to shift. New leadership steps in, training reforms begin, and a fresh generation of officers enters the system. Meanwhile, Daniel reflects on what justice really means and what it costs to make it real. 3 months later, Greenridge didn't look completely different, but it didn't feel the same either. The old murals on Main Street had been repainted by local artists, this time with black faces, raised fists, and glowing eyes. A new sign hung outside the precinct. "Accountability lives here." It felt bold, maybe even naive, but it was honest, and honesty for once was in season. A new police chief was sworn in, Chief Selina Ward. Black, decades of experience. Eyes that had seen the worst and still showed up anyway. Her first order of business, restructure patrol protocols. Her second, mandatory bias training. Her third, fire 3 officers who thought they could outlast the storm. "I'm not here to clean up," she said at her first press conference. "I'm here to rebuild." Lieutenant Bell stayed on, now second in command. People whispered less when she passed, respected her more, but she still parked in the far corner of the lot, not out of humility, but because it gave her the clearest view of who walked in and out. She believed in visibility now, and in consequences. Meanwhile, a quiet revolution started at the academy. New recruits were taught the case of Darren Cooper on day 1. It wasn't framed as scandal. It was taught as a turning point. "You are not here to survive the badge," Chief Ward told them. "You are here to honor it, or don't wear it." Daniel returned to DC, but didn't vanish. He was promoted quietly, became lead architect of a new federal initiative called Watchdog, a program embedding silent observers in high-risk precincts, designed to expose, report, and reshape. Just like he did, but he rarely gave interviews anymore. He let the facts speak. One day, Bell called. "Him, you ever wonder if it was worth it?" Daniel stared at the ceiling in his office. "All the time." Bell exhaled on the line. "You miss being anonymous?" "I miss being underestimated." They laughed. Tired, but not broken. That weekend, Daniel returned to Greenridge for a closed-door meeting. No press, no announcements, just him, Chief Ward, Bell, and a projector screen. Ward clicked it on. "New data," she said. "Stop and frisk stats, arrest disparities, complaint volumes." Daniel scanned the numbers. They were better, still imperfect, still real. but better. Belle leaned over. Small victories? Daniel nodded. Big echoes. Outside, across the street from City Hall, a group of kids played on a freshly painted basketball court. One wore a hoodie that said, "The system watched us. Now we watch it." Daniel watched for a moment, then turned to Ward and said quietly, "Next city?" Ward smirked. "Always." As the dust settles, Daniel visits the street where it all began. The slap, once a symbol of pain, now echoes with change. But justice is not a finish line. It's a road without end. And for Daniel, the fight continues, quietly, steadily, unstoppably. Willow Creek Boulevard hadn't changed much. Same quiet homes, same trimmed hedges, same white fences that looked cleaner than they felt. But Daniel saw it differently now. This was the place where his dignity had been tested, not by the force of a slap, but by the silence that followed it, until he answered. He stood on the sidewalk where Cooper had pulled him over. The spot was just concrete, but now it meant something. Behind him, someone approached, an older white man, retired, wore a Greenridge PD cap low over tired eyes. "You the guy?" he asked. Daniel didn't. "Turn. Depends." The one who didn't swing back. Now Daniel looked at him. "Yes." The man gave a slow nod. "My grandson's in the academy now. He says they talk about you like a damn case study." Daniel smirked. "I'll take it." The man hesitated, then said, "I wouldn't have done what you did." "I know," Daniel replied. "That's why I had to." They stood there a moment, then the man walked off, hands in pockets, no apology, but no denial either. Later that night, Daniel packed his bags, not out of escape, but purpose. The next assignment was waiting. Another city, another precinct, another badge hiding a bruising hand. This work never ends. He didn't want it to. Before leaving, he stopped by the Civic Center. The mural had grown, now covering half the wall. It showed a black man in a blue suit standing. Tall, no name on the painting, just words beneath. They tried to erase his voice. Instead, they amplified it. Daniel ran his fingers along the edge of the wall. He didn't pose, didn't take a photo. He just breathed it in and walked away. At the airport, his gait was quiet. A woman sat across from him, scrolling through news. She didn't recognize him, or pretended not to, but her screen lit up with a headline, "Greenridge. PD reforms continue after Royce case." He watched her nod slightly to herself, a small, knowing smile. Daniel closed his eyes. Let that be enough. In the plane window's reflection, he saw not the man who got slapped, but the one who stood still, unflinching. Not because he had to, because the world needed to see what happens when we do.